I'm not sure we should throw these devices into the mix of the conversation immediately because they still look too sexy and everyone's making up whatever excuse they can to get their hands on one. I'm guilty of doing that myself. But going back to your question about doing nothing, as I said earlier, I really don't think doing nothing is an option, and I think if you do think that it is an option, someone else will come along and say that option's no longer here, and nor are you. Mm-hmm. So let's just, I mean, we're going to go into this in more detail, I imagine, as we go through these podcasts, but one very simple example comes to mind. It's not a unique one. I've heard it several times from customers of Xythos, large institutions that have IT staffs held responsible for managing literally hundreds of file servers spread throughout their organizations, in some cases across many different geographic locations as well. And so as you can imagine, the cost of managing those devices, those servers, and the consumption that they represent in terms of energy and management requirements is significant. Those very same customers are beginning to realize that with new enterprise content management technologies, with the advent of secure methods by which content can be exchanged over public networks and connected to common content repositories, they are in a position today where they may not have been a few years ago, where cost-saving initiatives can be supported by the introduction of this kind of new ECM technology to immediately reduce the cost of managing what can be, in several cases that I've heard about, hundreds of file servers. And the cost associated with that can measure into the hundreds of thousands, and in some cases millions of dollars. So when we talk about trying to save money, yes, there may be some cost associated with doing that. And that's where getting out the pencil and paper proverbially, or at least the spreadsheet, really makes sense.
The dreaded ROI?
Well, yeah, we're back to that. And maybe that went away over the last 5 or 6 years, but I certainly remember during the last downturn that ROI-based purchase justification was almost a de facto requirement in terms of evaluating any kind of new technology. And there's nothing wrong with that. If through the process of evaluation, one can demonstrate, hopefully unequivocally, that the introduction of a hopefully a low-cost technology, an open standards, web-based technology, for example, can indeed save in a very discrete period of time, and hopefully less than a year, a cost that might be 10x the acquisition cost. And I think you have a very strong argument for, at a minimum, testing that technology. And if the testing works out properly, looking for opportunities to deploy it at a department level. And then again, if it works well at that level, rolling it out to a division and perhaps at some point on a company-wide basis. Notice that what I'm suggesting is not jumping willy-nilly into new technologies and adopting them and saying this is going to solve all of our problems overnight, let's let everybody start doing this. That went out with Web 1.0 10 years ago. But there are many, I think, good examples and guidelines available from members of the analyst community, like Gartner and Forrester, for example, who have spent a lot of time looking at this and said, there's a path that you can take. They're very discrete and measurable steps that are recommended, and there is an ROI analysis and a payback period which can be established for the introduction of new web-based content management technologies in particular, where the justification can be made using dollars and cents.
Sure, absolutely. Now, you talked a little bit about being able to kind of dip one's toe in the water, as it were, either with a pilot project or with a particular department or something of that nature. Are there ways that Xythos provides that type of implementation now, either by a pilot program or by a 30-day trial or something like that?
Well, historically, enterprise software has relied on a proof of concept as a means by which to allow an IT team, once it's become convinced that this technology is something that they'd like to go further with, to demonstrate within their own four walls, so to speak, to other members of that organization, that the benefits that are hoped for, in fact, can be achieved, at least in a test environment. Today, we have even more opportunities. Software as a service is probably the best example of how the web has allowed a number of different types of applications, CRM, other enterprise class applications, and today also enterprise document management or content management, to be delivered as a service that a single individual can begin using in a matter of minutes. So that's certainly the case with Xythos On Demand. And so oftentimes I recommend to organizations, regardless of size, that they find a very obvious, sort of well-contained project opportunity.
Sure.
And whether you choose to do that on-premise or using a SaaS vehicle, that's really up to the way the organization sort of views those kinds of things. But SaaS makes it probably easier than any other method in terms of technology delivery to begin experimenting with things like enterprise content management and determining for your own satisfaction the degree to which that technology can be put to work, helping you save money, helping you be a more responsive or real-time organization, and all the other things that you might necessarily be interested in as you look at enterprise content management and the collaborative functionality that it can bring to your organization.
Sure. Well, that ends today's podcast of Saving Time and Money with Document Management. Again, thanks, Jim. I think we're going to be doing this on a fairly regular basis.
Okay.
And I would like to explore more with you over the coming weeks, some more opportunities about how enterprises and organizations can save time and money, and answer some of these questions, perhaps talking about how to ensure compliance, as well as
Excellent, thank you. And if you, Maria, or those that are viewing this podcast today have other questions, by all means, please send your suggestions, additional questions you'd like to see us address to either my address or Maria's. I think we'll be adding that to the podcast.
Yes,
afterwards.
We will be adding it to the podcast. Or you can visit the website at www.xythos.com.
Exactly, and that's what I was wanting to add in closing, and that is that already there are a fair amount of resources,
yes.
Published case studies, some white papers as well, that really dig into some of the subject matter that we've already begun discussing today. And for those viewers that would like to research on their own, I would also recommend going to www.xythos.com and look in the resources section. It's a little bit difficult.